Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome back to another episode of Unbalanced with me, Cerys Davage. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all having a good day. I certainly am because I've got another interview episode for you guys. I'm meeting someone that I've been in contact with on Instagram for a while, but I'm really excited to fully get to know Kae on a deeper level, per se. So let's welcome Kae. Hi.
Hi,
How are you doing?
great. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Me too. I've been wanting this for so long, so I'm really glad we've been able to set this up. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you and where are you from?
Well, my name is Kay, and I am from Toronto, Canada. I wear many hats. I am a model, I am a multidisciplinary creative freelancer, and I advocate for people with disabilities and for accessibility practices while raising awareness for our disease, muscular dystrophy.
That's great. That's a really good summary. Well done.
It's a handful.
Sometimes it's difficult to summarize yourself in a couple of sentences, but we'll
Yep.
definitely get into all the little bits that you do. But I guess the main thing I know about you right now is that you do a lot of work to raise awareness on Instagram, and obviously that's how we got in contact. Yeah, could you share a bit about your experiences with your Instagram life?
Um, Actually, how did you find me? Through hashtag or through other community members?
I think someone also with LGMD sent me your account and was like this girl also has LGMD, you should get her on your podcast. So I followed you for a while and I feel like the content you post is very similar to the content that I really enjoy anyway, like aesthetic stuff, weekly roundups, but also talking about like really honestly about your current journey with muscular dystrophy. So yeah, I just knew I needed to talk to you. I needed to get to know you. So yeah, I think that's how I found you actually.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so it's working because I purposely put hashtag muscular dystrophy, hashtag life with MD, hashtag LGMD. And I don't know if hashtags are dead, but I did that because I want to be a resource for people like us to be able to know that we're not alone in this. Because I know for me, I had no one. And the first thing I did going through it was I looked it up online and I found maybe only three people, and none of them was local, no one I knew in real life. It was still isolating, but it was a glimmer of hope to know that I wasn't really alone. There's other people like us somewhere out there in the world, whether even though it's not in our city or country. But yeah, I started self advocating online because I felt like I had no choice. I dealt with a lot of discrimination, a lot of judgment, and it was very tough because our disease is semi invisible. We don't look traditionally or stereotypically disabled, and but we're really losing our mobility, but we look fine on the outside, but once you see us
Yeah.
move, it's really tough. And no matter how much I try to explain to my close friends and family, and I think because I didn't complain and I just try to act normal, or able body passing, I don't think they realized how much I was struggling. So it got to the point where I was at my lowest point in life, where no one, even my closest friends, didn't understand me. And I thought, if they don't understand me, of course strangers wouldn't. So I started writing about it online so people could really know what it's like being us. And that's when I came out of the disability closet, is what I like to call it.
Hmm.
I initially had hidden it from everyone except for close friends and family. And it got to the point where I couldn't hide it anymore. And I was tired of it, of being judged. And yeah, came out of the disability closet on Rare Disease Day. And I think I was 27. So it was much later in life.
Wow.
Yeah. And so from there, it was like this weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like the burden of keeping this secret was like not mine to hold anymore. I felt instantly lighter. And yeah, things changed ever since I came out of the closet. So I think that's part of
For
being
the better, I
authentically
hope.
yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like,
yeah,
it's part of being
definitely.
authentically yourself, because I think I was in denial for so long because it's so slow progressive. You kind of think it's not going to hit me yet. Like I'm not going to really lose mobility, but then yeah, it does. It catches up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw so much of myself in that story that you just said before I came out. Like you said, like I guess my podcast was my way of letting everyone know about my about this disability. No one really knew except my close friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
But again, my friends didn't get it because I mean, yeah, we were young, we were in high school, and you don't really understand things as much at that age, and they just like couldn't. I just felt like I wasn't taken seriously because I looked fine, and even though I struggled with things, I couldn't really communicate it that well because I was still learning about it myself and still adjusting to things that I suddenly couldn't do anymore. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly, right? Like I heard
Mm.
your podcast and I thought I went through the same thing, but I'm about like a decade older than you, but you had come to terms with it a lot sooner than I did. But I think back back in my day, we didn't have that same kind of resource or community, and like disability culture wasn't really a thing. So I had no one to talk to about it with, and I also grew up in a predominantly white city. So I was kind of already trying to fit in being a person of, I was, I'm Asian. So it was, I just didn't want to draw more attention to the fact that I was different. And because I was starting to lose ability to walk and climb stairs and I would hide that, I isolated myself even more, but I was just, I didn't even want to look up the symptoms. Like when I got my diagnosis, I didn't want to look it up because I was so scared of seeing what that meant for my future. And when I talk to old friends now, they come to me and they're like, I feel bad. Like we never talked about it. And I said, it's not your fault. Like I also didn't know how to talk about it. So it's very interesting now as you get older and I've come to terms with who you are and what your life is like. You have people around you who are like, I also feel bad that I didn't know how to support you. And so now I'm learning it is part of teaching those around you to support you in the way you need. It's a lot of communication, right? So it's great that you and I are starting this thing online where we're talking about it more and we need more of that.
Definitely, yeah, and that's something I'm really pushing for with this podcast is just to get more information out there, but also connect with more people. But that sounds really difficult what you went through, and I can't imagine like receiving the diagnosis and at that age you don't really know what to do with it, and if you're adjusting to it yourself, how are you supposed to communicate that with your loved ones, and how are they supposed to understand if you don't even understand it yourself? Do you mind telling us a bit about how old you were when you got the diagnosis, and what that process was like?
Yeah, so my symptoms started off gradual, as all LGMDs do. Um, it was probably about 3 to 4 years before I finally got a diagnosis. And it was my oldest brother who had told me to go see his doctor. And I did a blood test and my CK levels were very high. And then they just confirmed that I had the same disease as him. And he's 7 years older than me. And we grew up in different homes and cities. So I had no idea he was also going through the same thing. But because he was older and he had seen how I was walking, he told me to go see his doctor. So I don't know if it wasn't for him that I would have known what to do, or, obviously it's been so long, but I was 17 when I finally got a diagnosis. I was almost 18. So it was my final year of high school. And I thought, well, there's no point telling friends now. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, I'm going to leave and never see these people again. Like, I just try to, be normal. But my brother did a muscle biopsy and I didn't have to do that because I'm related to him. So they said a simple blood test would verify that we had the same thing.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm glad that he went through that so that you didn't have to.
Yeah, yeah. He goes, "You're so lucky you didn't have to do it because I have the giant scar down my leg." But
Oh,
I have four siblings and only one
okay.
of them has it. Yeah, so it's just my oldest brother
Wow.
and I. Yeah, and the rest we don't. So,
Wow. Just you guys are the
mhm.
unlucky ones.
I
That's
know,
frustrating.
no, but
Mm.
our experiences were different. Like we actually didn't really lean on each other that much because of the age gap and because I was just entering university. He was living in a different city, and so we didn't really talk about it. And we handled it very differently, and our progression was very different. So even though I have a brother with it, I still felt very alone. And it wasn't until 2019 when I finally found someone that's similar in age to me, that was a female, that was like, going through the same experiences as just a young woman. And that's when I truly felt seen. And that was like, I was probably 20, 28 or 29 by the time I finally found someone I could relate to.
Wow, that's such
Yeah.
a long time to go through it
Yeah.
alone. And going through that alone must have been so, so tough. And I guess I was really lucky. Like, my mum signed us up to the registry straight away, like me and my sisters who also have it, and, tried to make connections as soon as possible, even though they didn't live close. I guess I have my mum to thank for all the connections, but that must have been really difficult to go through it alone for so long.
my family didn't know what to do, and they're an immigrant family, so they didn't really know to like go to the doctors or anything like that. So I went to all my doctor appointments alone. I had to do all the, find all the resources alone. I had to find all the tools to cope alone. And that's why I think it took me so long, because I did it alone. But now I look at, people your age, and I think that's incredible. You guys are so strong. I'm so impressed because you guys were able to come to terms with it a lot sooner. But I also think back, like, the climate is different today than it was in my youth, right? Like, I didn't have the same resources and access to that. Like, no one was really speaking up as often. Social media wasn't as big. Like, I think we only had
Mm,
Facebook back then, and I don't think I really knew what advocacy was. And even when I
yeah.
started, I didn't know that was still a viable career or anything, right? I just knew I had to just tell everyone, okay, I have LGMD, and now, like, I'll have to stop hiding and making up excuses for why I can't join you today, or why I can't do something, or why I wasn't able to find work. Like, this is what I'm going through. And that was probably the best thing that has ever happened to me, by just coming out of the closet, the disability closet, and saying, this is what I'm going through, this is what I have, and do with it what you will. But this is who I am now.
Yeah, yeah. It is such a good thing to do. I feel like for so long I wasn't sure, who I should tell, and as if it was some big secret, but I was like, I'm gonna
Exactly.
have to deal with it at some point. I may as well just make a podcast about it.
I love that. It's
Um,
very healing too, right? Like, when you are sharing your truth, it is very healing because it's part of you is being authentic, and it's just an outlet to, I think, like, work through those emotions, right?
Yeah, yeah. I do find that it's kind of like a vocal journal, and I'm not very good with writing as much as I am with just rambling. Um, so this is kind of my outlet, anything that's on my mind, anything that's happened, I can just kind of let it out, and I know that someone out there hopefully will be able to relate to me. But I guess nowadays, maybe not as much back in your day, but now, advocacy is such a big thing, and
Yeah,
awareness, and,
yeah.
people are raising awareness about all sorts of conditions and diseases, and you
Hmm.
name it, like there's some kind of resource out there now for anything, which is really, really good. But I can imagine it must have been quite difficult for you in those years where, social media wasn't as big, that you had to advocate for yourself and not have any resources or, anyone else with MD to back you up on that?
Yeah, I mean, I only had my brother, but we still went through it so differently, right? Like, it
Yeah.
like, he's 7 years older, he's a boy. Like, we were just so different. And so I think if people around us didn't really know how to handle it, we kind of just went about our life because it was so slow progressive that we were just like, oh, well, like, we'll just live our life. But I had nothing. I think that's why I tried to fit myself in this able-bodied cultural expectation, right? Like, I was like, I'm going to pretend I'm healthy and normal, and I'll just get a job and not tell them I need accommodation because I'm trying to, like, get my foot in the door in the workplace. Like, I was just trying to put myself to the same standard as able-bodied people, but it was so unfair, and it was exhausting, and it was really difficult, and it was really stressful because I had all these barriers that no one else had. And I'm still facing those today. But the difference is now it's like I'm using what I thought was my weakness to be something that's my, like, advantage now. That is my superpower. That is what makes me me and unique. And I have this incredible perspective now. And accessibility and disability is really applicable to every aspect of life. It's technically rare, but we are the largest minority group that anyone can become a part of, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's a very universal human experience. So I think that's actually, like, a really advantageous thing to have. Like, people need to value us more in the workplace and in general, right? But this is why we need to share our voices online, because if we don't keep speaking up for ourselves, like, we're never going to make room for us. They're going to keep leaving us out because they're going to forget that we exist. But we are here. So I love what, like, today has become.
I do want to know what your symptoms were kind of growing up, and then we'll move on to how you're affected now.
Right. It started off with not being able to tippy toe. I couldn't jump as high. I couldn't run as fast. I started having trouble climbing the stairs. I would kind of have sudden falls. I didn't know I was limping, but people would be like, "Are you okay? You're limping." And I'd be like, "Okay, something is going on." But it was very gradual, and I think my symptoms were in the eighth grade, um, ninth grade, and then by grade 10, I had trouble climbing up the stairs. I was, like, dragging myself up the stairs. And then from there on, it was just I avoided climbing stairs at school with anyone around. So I would always just like be late for class. So I had the stairwell to myself. So I can just like take my time dragging up the stairs. And it was a lot of sneaking around just to be normal. And so I wouldn't have it, raise any red flags with friends and then be alienated in school. So that's how it started. And then I got my diagnosis. And then I had 1 year left of school and graduated. I chose a university that was quite accessible. And from there on, I still continue to hide it because I just want to live a normal life. And now I'm 33 and I can still walk, but I do the thing where it's called like furniture walking. So I hold on to like the wall or any table as I'm walking along. And as soon as I leave my apartment, I usually hold on to someone and I walk with them with my cane, or now I use my wheelchair. And now I'm also noticing my upper body is affected. So like lifting it to put a shirt on or washing my hair or to put my hair in a ponytail is like really tiring. So lifting my arm is now affected. So the lower part went first, I would say, and now the upper is catching up. But I use my upper body a lot to make up for my legs. Like I push myself off the chair, the bed, everything, the toilet. And I think what's hard is if I lose my upper body, it's going to stress me out because then I've got nothing. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But like you've mentioned your podcast, like a wheelchair has saved me a lot of energy. And I'm still pushing myself to take steps, even if it's not much, but it's a win for me. I'm still trying to use it so I don't lose it, but within reason. So a lot of it now is managing my energy levels and being safe about it.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. And it honestly feels like you're me just a few years ahead. I mean, you are a decade older than me, so
No.
um I definitely feel that I use my upper body a lot to compensate for my lower body. For example, with stairs, which I'm absolutely terrible at.
Oh, I
I
avoid
can
them.
only
They're
climb stairs.
impossible.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Where
Hmm.
where possible, stairs are an absolute no. Like I need to use the lift, the elevator. But if I absolutely have to, it's my arms that make it possible for me to climb stairs.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
legs just don't work.
Hmm.
I need to hold on to a rail or a wall or something, and I need to literally lean against it and like
Hmm.
pull myself up using my upper body. It's really quite a dehumanizing experience, and I really really don't enjoy doing that at all. But I guess like you said, you need to try and stay as active as possible. I don't
Yep.
encounter stairs luckily in my day-to-day life anymore, but if I do, I'm like, you know what, let's do it. I'm gonna have to at some point, but I know I will lose that ability, and I know I will end up using my wheelchair more and more. And I think something I'm really struggling with is just getting used to the wheelchair as a part of you, as an aid, and not something to fear and something to feel really anxious in and worry what other people think. What's your journey been like with using mobility aids?
I used a cane for the first time when I was 26. That's pretty young, Like I remember being I felt nervous at first using it, but then I thought it's a safety thing and now a visual indicator to be like, I need help and I'm slow and you're gonna need to expect that. And but with that I would also get a lot of like, oh my God, what happened to you? I hope you won the fight, or like, did you hurt yourself, or hope you get better. And so I got a lot of those comments, yeah. And then now I got my wheelchair. Yeah, it
I find
happens.
that so funny. Like when people say, "I hope you get better," I mean, like, I'm only gonna get worse, but thanks.
I know, right? So, I just say thanks. I know they mean well. They don't like, our disease is
Mhm.
very rare, but at the time I was 26, and I looked even younger than then too. So people were very confused. They thought it was like a temporary disability. Now I got my wheelchair 2 years ago. It's like a foldable power wheelchair, and 2 years prior to that, my OT, my occupational therapist, was, going through the works with me, just like, okay, well, we'll need to apply for this, we need to do this, like maybe you should get your wheelchair. And I remember when she said that, I was stunned because I was not mentally and emotionally ready for that, which I knew would happen because my brother was in it. I've met other people in it. I just felt like I could delay this further, like I could just wait a little longer. But I thought, okay, you know what, like I'm not ready yet, but let me think about it. And I think a year later, I finally applied for it. And I knew I wanted to get a wheelchair that not only worked in my living situation and just to have like ease of transport, but I wanted something that looked good because I'm still relatively young. I like to look stylish. I like to look good. So I wanted a wheelchair that reflected that. So that was a big part of helping me transition, was finding something that not only worked but looked good and reflected my aesthetic. I think the biggest resistance for me getting one was just having to succumb to the reality that we are getting weaker and that we are going to lose our independence. And I think by resisting getting one made me feel like I was still like, okay, I'm still not there yet. Like I could, like I felt I could fight that. But eventually I shifted my perspective and I knew like, hey, if I get it, it doesn't mean I always have to use it. It's just situational, right? And that's an option because there were many times where I missed out on spending time with my loved ones because I didn't have a wheelchair and so I couldn't go. So now I have the option. And like you said in your previous podcast, it's situational, right? Sometimes you can't use it because the space was too narrow. We don't have the car for it. And so like the good thing is it's an option. And now that I use it, it's like, oh my God, I wish I got it sooner, actually. Like, I really wish I got it sooner instead of denying this like mental resistance. Like, I was so afraid of what it represented, but it really does offer freedom and more experiences. And now you can participate in life. So I almost don't want to go anywhere without it. Even though I know I might not use it, I just like, if I'm able to bring it, I will bring it because it gives me the option. Like, maybe today I want to save my energy. So it's like been really nice. And I actually get a lot of compliments where people like at least once a day, like if I'm ever in it, like will be like, that's a really cool chair. I've never seen that before. Nice chair. And so it's nice. People do stare, but maybe they're staring for a number of reasons. The point is like, and I get to go outside again and I get to participate in life. I will say, even though it's been 2 years of having it, I still don't use it like every week. I don't use it every day. It's just for certain occasions. And when I'm in a more intimate social settings, I get nervous because you really are the only one in the room with a wheelchair. And it could be friends of friends you're meeting for the first time. That's more intimate to me. That's like a closer degree of separation. Whereas like if I'm out on the streets with someone staring at me, I'm like, I'm probably never going to see you again. But when they get close to you, you get a little nervous because you're like, I don't want them to think I'm like, like this sad person, where I have noticed a tone change for sure. Some people are super nice and some people are a little condescending. Like it's just what it is. And I got that using a cane as well. But at the end of the day, like my doctors always emphasized throughout my 20s, like safety first, safety first. Like that was my experience, but I love it. And I think we need to reframe how we view it. It is a symbol of freedom and it's a tool. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone who has a wheelchair has said, like, I wish I got it sooner.
Yeah.
I guess my worry is the more I start using my wheelchair, the more I might lose my mobility just because I would have the wheelchair as an option. So why would I not want to use the wheelchair? You know what I mean? Because I can still walk right now and I'm trying to walk as much as I can. I'm really trying to keep my stamina going. But I feel like if I use the
Mhm.
wheelchair more and more, will I just help that progression happen quicker? You know what I mean?
No, that's exactly how I felt as well. Like even like getting a cane and using one, I thought, well, I don't want to rely on it and then be afraid to go without it. And then I started using it all the time. And so that's the hard part. Like we don't know if we are emotionally relying on it, sorry, versus like, are we progressing and we actually need it as we like can't leave the house
Yeah.
without it, right? Maybe it's both. And the same thing's happening with the wheelchair. Like I'm noticing I'm getting a bit of anxiety having to leave the house without my wheelchair now because I'm so afraid of having to go through the mental and physical work of just taking the steps to the parking lot. Like I'm like, oh my God, like it's so strenuous in my mind. Like I can't hear you when I'm walking because I'm so focused on not
Yeah.
falling and tripping. Like I don't hear you at all. So it's like but then, when I do finally leave the house, I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And so I think it is a balance. Like I was nervous about that too, but sometimes I do challenge myself to not take it today. Like don't use the wheelchair today. We'll walk to the car. And sometimes I'm like, there's no choice. We can't fit the wheelchair. So you have to push yourself. So it's
Yeah.
exhausting. I'm not gonna lie. It is very tough to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I guess it's there, for bad days because, we all have good
Hmm.
days and bad days. But
Exactly.
it's nice to have that as an option. Like, if you can't do something, you don't feel like you've suddenly lost your independence for that day. It is there for you. But I guess, well, like you said, we have a semi-invisible disability. So sometimes I get comments where I need to use the lift to go up one floor, and people are like, why are you not just taking the stairs? And then I have to explain that I have a disability in that way because you can't see it. And then I get the other side where people have comments, about the way I walk, like, are you okay? Like, have you broken your leg or something? And I know most of it is out of concern or just out of pure curiosity, but I've just learned to just put on a face and be like, no, it's okay, I've got a
Yeah,
disability.
yeah, so I got that a lot with, that's why I got a cane. It actually helped people stop questioning as often, but
Mm,
I would still occasionally get it because it would bring attention. But I think it comes with experience and age, like time, because you just get to the point where you're like, yeah, I got MD, so what? Like you just tell them and explain it to them. And then most of the time they're like, oh, I feel like an idiot for asking you because it does correct their
yeah.
behavior and their attitude a bit, right? So you're going to be like, I have this, I can't do that. And they're going to be like, oh, okay, sorry, didn't know, right? Like it's like
Mm,
you just have to come from a standpoint of like, this is who I am, this is what I need, this is what I can't do, and I'm going to tell you about it. And then if they don't react kindly, then it's not for you. But
mm,
with wheelchairs, like it's funny because you can look at someone with a disability and be like, yeah, that's no problem. They need it. Who cares, right? Like it's easy on the outside, but once you're in the wheelchair, it's so different. Like the experience is different. You yourself, you look at people using it and you're like, that's not a problem. I don't even think twice. But then when you're in it, you're like, oh my God, it's so scary using it because people do stare and people do treat you differently.
yeah.
But that's something, unfortunately, we just have to push through until, I don't know, forever, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Mm. I see that as a way of just advocating for other people that may not be able to say that and be that open.
Exactly. And it is a muscle, ironically, it is a muscle we have to like strengthen because it does take courage to share our story and to talk about our vulnerabilities. Like it is human nature to want to be healthy and strong. And there's something, innately shameful about being like, I'm like falling apart, like it's not a good feeling. But I do it because I want to help people like me. I went through it alone all in my 20s and teens. Like I don't want anyone to feel that. It was like the darkest feeling I've ever felt. And so through this, I've gained purpose and community, which is such an incredible like feeling. Like I feel good doing what we're doing, but unfortunately it's sharing my lived experiences. I have to turn my pain into some kind of helpful resource for our people because we do need each other. We can't do it alone. And I think all I have to say is from your older sister, it takes time and practice and give yourself some grace because it's never easy. And for me, like I can't get out of my wheelchair without help, and I am visibly getting skinnier. So I can't say that I've experienced someone being like, "Oh, you're faking it. You can walk out of this wheelchair." Like for me, I'm visibly like struggling now. But I am hearing from a lot of people who are ambulatory wheelchair users, and they're like, people are calling me fake or that I got better, and it's so annoying. And I can't relate to that because I'm now using it where I need it more. But
Mm.
I think that's something you're going to have to learn to like shut out and just know that you are doing this for you and you can only educate and then you just got to move on. Like it can't affect us anymore. That's what all I've done in my 20s. And it was the most heaviest shit ever. So just live your life, do what you got to do to be safe and have fun. That's all we can do now.
That's such a nice piece of advice. I like that.
Yeah.
And you're speaking from a place, you've been through the darkness, you've
Yeah.
been through the worst things because of it. And so, I mean, yeah, you're just doing it because you don't want other people to go through the same thing as you. But I guess that's made you
Well,
stronger.
yeah, I worried so much about what people would think. And I thought that's no way to live. It was affecting my mental health, honestly. Like this disease obviously is as mental as it is physical, right? We have to be so strong to be able to keep pushing through in a body that won't cooperate, right? So like
Yeah.
I've been through that, and it's like we can't control what people think. We can only educate and like, hope they have some empathy and compassion. But I think back and I'm like, why wasn't I just unapologetically me? It's so easy to look back and be like, I should have just said I have LGMD and this is who I am, and accommodate me. We'll learn to work together. But
Mm.
instead, I had internalized all of that ableism because that is what we've been taught in society. I just want to say it's easier said than done, but you just kind of have to be unapologetically you, use that wheelchair, do what you got to do, and just live your life because our life is already hard. So my advice is just have fun. Just,
Exactly.
do what you got to do. No
Life
more
is too
suffering.
short, and what I love is that even though our bodies may get worse as we go on, our minds and our voices are still going to be as strong as ever, if not stronger
Mhm.
as we get weaker. So that's why it's just so important to keep sharing, keep enjoying life, and keep in contact with, other people. And
Yeah, disabled joy is also a kind of advocacy. Like they think, disabled people are just at home living a miserable life, but no, we do have a good life. And our life isn't over just because we got a disability. It's just different, right?
Exactly.
So by sharing our personal stories, we're showing how there's no one way of living life. And that's going to show other people like us that, like, yeah, we can continue thriving. Like, we can continue on. Nothing about us without us. You know that saying?
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
haven't actually. I haven't
No?
heard that one.
So, typically able-bodied people are creating the disability policy or doing the accessibility consulting or doing things and speaking for us, but they don't have our lived experiences. So we must keep speaking up for ourselves.
So true. And one of the best ways
Hmm.
you're doing that is through your Instagram. And for me, it's just really nice to see someone. Obviously, I know you've got the same condition as me, but it's just nice to see, disabled representation in like modeling. I know you do a lot of modeling. Does it feel good to like kind of be a face of someone disabled, like in the creatives, I guess? Because there is definitely a lack of that, isn't there?
Yeah, but it's funny because I am signed as a disabled model. However, again, like we don't look disabled without our mobility aids. So now
Right.
what's ironic is that I purposely show them in my photos to signal that I'm disabled. And it's like, unless you see video and you see me moving, but I have to purposely show them in photos now. And one thing I'm actually still encountering is like there is still a barrier in representation because I think brands still want to show that visible. Like, how can you show it in photos? So it's like someone who is missing an arm or leg, or they're in a manual wheelchair or something, right? And like I don't get cast as often because in my photos I don't think I look disabled enough. My agency thankfully believes in my messaging. It's just a matter of the casting director, the brand, what who they want, and because I have actual physical requirements for accommodations, like I have those needs. I find that a lot of them don't want to provide that as well. Like I've been cast as a disabled model, and then I show up on set, and it's got all these stairs. And so what I'm learning is it doesn't matter.
What?
Like, yeah, yeah. So what I'm learning is like it doesn't end. The educating, the advocating, for people like us, we're gonna have to keep doing the work, and it's
Mm,
exhausting. But someone's got to do it, and it's got to be us because we
exactly.
know we know best. But
They just don't think about it, you know? Like things
exactly.
that they take for granted, we have to really like work our lives around it, you know? So we have to let them know what we need because otherwise they just wouldn't even think about it.
But it's frustrating because it feels like a checklist. Like I went from
Yeah.
being invisible to a checklist. So it's like Limb Girdle is very funny like that because I feel like we're still in the middle. We're still visible, invisible.
Yeah.
I still find till this day, I'm still trying to teach people closest to me because it is progressive. So what was true last week isn't true today. Like I didn't know I was also going to have a bad sleep last night. Like we just don't know with our body and energy levels. And it's like a constant, you're going to have to always advocate for yourself is what I'm learning. So
Yeah, and just always
yeah.
adjust to how you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling because I guess sometimes it's really frustrating if I want to make plans tomorrow and then I wake up and tomorrow is a bad physical day and I can't commit to that, you know, and I'm a very social person, so I hate cancelling plans. I hate when my body can't keep up with my mind and my social calendar. So that's definitely something I'm adjusting to as well, is just listening to my body and putting myself first, as hard as that is.
You have to because it is a very tough disease to live with. I will be honest, I have hard days where I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Like, this sucks. Why me? And then I have other days where I'm like, oh, this is my new normal now. Like, it's all good. And then until the next time it progresses or I notice some kind of ability being lost, and then I start having a breakdown, and then I go through the cycle again. It is literally this like cyclical process of having LGMD because it's progressive. And I always tell myself, if this didn't progress, I think life would be a lot easier. But because we're always having to evolve and adapt and learn and then readjust, it is exhausting. Like it is hard, but that is part of the journey, isn't it?
Definitely.
Why we
I
talk
wish
about it.
I could talk to you
I know.
forever about this because I know that there's so much we could share and so much that we probably have in common.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I know we've talked about a lot of the negative parts of LGMD, but what's something positive you've gotten out of it?
I would say community for sure, purpose. And I don't think my spirituality would be as strong as it is. So I would say those three things I've gained out of having a disability. I think I have incredible like perspective on life. I know what really matters. And I move with purpose now. Like I want to help and be a part of this amazing community that helps the betterment of humanity. Like we have each other and it's so special because we're all in the same fight. So knowing that we can provide our lived experiences to someone who was lost like I was a decade ago, the younger version of me, like is really nice because we shouldn't and we can't do life alone. Whether or not you have a disability, we just can't do life alone. So
No, yeah.
it's
We all
the
need each other.
community. Yeah. So the community, like finding, you found me and then now we're friends and we have so much in common was like, this is so nice. And knowing that even though you're across the world from me, we have so much in common. And it's just nice knowing that just, we just relate to each other without really having to talk about it. We can
Yeah.
just like, there's this connection already,
We
right?
just know, yeah,
We just know.
definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, purpose and spirituality is my biggest thing.
That's
What
really
about you?
nice. Yeah. Oh, I would say community is like
Yeah.
100% the best thing. I don't think I would even know how to deal with it if it wasn't for other people being like, don't worry, girl, I know exactly how you feel. And yeah, I guess perspective on life and just being grateful for things
Mm-hmm.
that we take for granted. If I'm having a bad physical day, that makes me think, oh, I took that one day where I could walk to the nearest shop for granted. You really do get your perspectives changed like all the time, with every experience that you get. And it just makes you so grateful for the things that you do have in your life. And I see people, obviously LGMD affects people in different ways. And I see people that are the ones that are affected, with a very early onset. And even though they have the
Mm-hmm.
same thing as me, they got affected a lot earlier in life, from children. Or I see other disabilities and conditions that, makes me just really grateful for what I still can have, even though I've lost a lot. It's okay to grieve that, but it's just really important to be grateful for what you still have, because again, you never know when you might lose that ability to do something. So I just, yeah, try and stay grateful every day. I think that's something really
Yeah,
important.
that is an important part of dealing and living with this disease because in my 20s I focused on so much of what it was taking away from me that really took a toll on me. Like I was depressed because I kept thinking about, oh my God, I can't write anymore. I don't know about motherhood. I don't know about dating. I don't know about working. I thought
Oh,
about
yeah.
every single thing that
Mm,
just made me go crazy because I was so like, I was always worried and anxious and fearful. And now that I don't know if this comes with age, but now that I'm in my 30s, I've really worked on that. And it is about counting your blessings and being grateful for the little things. And it really helps. It really does. Because, yeah, we don't know if we're going to lose that tomorrow. And I find that, I don't know about you, but I find that little things that other people find a big deal is not a big deal to me. So I am more cool and level headed now because I'm like that. You don't know real struggle. Like, you guys nothing,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think an experience for me that like really changed my perspective is I was late catching a train and the elevator was broken, so I had to take the stairs. And because of that, I missed the train because it took me so long to get up the stairs and then across the platform and down the other side that I missed the train. And I got so upset and I was like, there's literally nothing I can do about this. I can't blame myself. I have no one really to blame apart from whoever broke the elevator. Why should I get upset about a missed train? There's going to be another one in like 5 minutes. So now I just take things at my own pace. If I miss a train, okay, fine. I'll just get the next one.
But here's the thing
That's,
too, because
yeah,
like things happen for a reason. Maybe you missed that. Like I always
exactly.
believe now, like I
Oh,
let
what's
things
it called?
happen and flow.
It's the burnt toast effect, right? Is that what it's called?
Oh
You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys don't know, search it up. There's a whole explanation of it. But it's kind of basically whatever happens, even though you may not see it as a good thing, it might,
Exactly,
have saved you from something really terrible. You never know. So
exactly.
yeah, like
So,
that, something like that really keeps a positive mentality for me. But
hmm
I do want to end the episode on a question that I ask everyone. And I know you talked a lot about, you in your 20s or when you first got the diagnosis. What piece of advice would you give that version of you that was really going through it, or anyone else that's struggling with a diagnosis?
oh man. I know I mentioned it, but I think the biggest thing for me that I struggled with when I first got diagnosed was I didn't talk about it. I didn't seek support. I didn't have support. I internalized everything. And I think if you are newly diagnosed, don't be afraid to learn about it and don't be afraid to talk about it. Know that life is not over, it's just different. So there are ways to live this unique life, but it doesn't mean that it's over.
I love that. That's
Mm-hmm.
just so nice to end it on. I feel like even though obviously we've only recently met, we have like connected like on such a deep level, and I know that, you know, if we did meet up or whenever we end up talking again, we'll click right back to where we were, and there'll be a lot to talk
Endless
about.
conversations. Yeah, we can go on and
Yeah,
on and on. Yeah, I would love to. And come to Toronto and maybe we can meet up
I will.
someday.
I'll be
Yeah,
there.
we'll figure it
We'll
out.
do an
We'll be,
in-person part two.
yeah, we'll be in touch.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, we'll be in
Definitely.
touch.
Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on my website is www.katran.com or on Instagram and most social media is at letter 11.
Definitely give her a follow because I'm absolutely loving your content. Please keep it
Oh, thank
coming.
you.
It's very inspirational, but also aesthetic, and I love an aesthetic Instagram.
Oh, thank you. It's funny because this year I actually I was very slow with it, but I always, it's funny. You say that like, I think you sound very confident on your podcast and you said you're still working through it. And me too,
Yeah,
right? And people see that with my
yeah,
social media, but I get nervous posting about our disease still
right.
to this day.
Yeah,
Still to this
yeah.
day, it feels like I'm talking into the void. Like no
Yeah,
one gets it,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Right. I think that's why people think I'm so like at peace with my condition, because I use the podcast as like a vocal journal, I guess, and I just speak my thoughts out onto it. But actually, I still struggle with it every day, you know, every little encounter with a stranger, every little bit of mobility that I'm losing, you know, it's still something I'm really coming to terms with every day and still struggling to accept it fully. So if you guys listening think that we like are
Have it
so fine
together.
and have it together, we really don't. And like if you're struggling to deal with the way your condition is affecting you right now, like we totally get it. Like I completely understand, and we are still
I don't
going
think
through
it
it.
ends. Yeah, the
It doesn't,
acceptance
no.
and the grievance doesn't end. We
Yeah.
really are just gonna have to work through that as we go on. I think we always will lose a part of ourselves, and that's okay. And I think we need to accept that we might not ever accept it. It is a
Yeah.
process. So yeah, don't believe in social media fully, I guess is what I'm saying.
Exactly. And this is why it's so important to like stay in touch with people that are going through the
Hmm.
same thing as you, because I feel like you're my older sister. I feel like you're my
Oh, I got
therapist.
you.
We need to like, yeah, we need to stay in touch because you know, at least then you know you're not the only one. You're not going crazy. You're not
Exactly.
thinking that you're alone, because yeah, it just makes it so much easier.
Only we understand.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for listening. If you made it to the end of this episode, don't forget to follow Unbalanced on your favorite podcast platform and to rate it 5 stars, because that really helps me out. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family, and I hope to be back with you very soon. Until then, have a lovely couple weeks. Bye.